This is an over-the-phone interview with Concord-based boxer Braulio Ceja-Navarro to talk about his upcoming fight on May 24th. Let's just start off with how old are you?
I'm 20 years old.
All right, 20. And you're from Concord. Have you lived there your whole life?
Yeah, so I've lived in Concord most of my life. The first 3 years I lived in Pittsburgh, and then in 2008 I moved to Concord, and that's really where I grew up.
Okay, and you're still living there? Or...
Yeah, I still currently live there.
Okay, cool. I saw your dad in one of the videos of you. I think it was when you were younger. I think
hmm
like a local newspaper or local news station did a interview with you. So I imagine your parents are immigrants from Mexico, right?
Yeah, both of my parents, they're from La Soledad, Michoacan.
Oh, okay.
Uh, they both came to the United States around 13, 14 years old, and the pretty much the classic immigrant story. They came here for a better life. They worked from the day they got here to now. They're still working, and then that's really the reason I've had the opportunity to box. Thanks to my parents and the effort that they've given, and they they set themselves up to be able to give me a better life, and yeah, that's really where a lot of my drive and passion comes from. The way I see my parents work, that's the work ethic that has been instilled in me, and I just try to work real hard to be able to give it back to them one day.
Right. That's great. In that same interview, your dad is a welder, right?
So my dad, he works at a place called California Casting. It's a foundry. He's been working there for probably 20 years now.
Okay. And in that interview, when you were younger, you were working there for a summer or something. Are you working there currently or anything?
No, I don't work there currently, but when I was a little bit younger and I couldn't get a job anywhere else, I would go to work with my dad, and we would wake up 4 in the morning to drive out to Richmond to start work at 6 a.m. every day, and that was like my first real taste of what a real job is like.
Okay. And I saw in one interview, one more recent one, you're doing just boxing training full time. Just all you do is just train for matches.
Yeah, so when I don't have a fight coming up, I'm a barber back in the Bay.
Oh,
But whenever I have a fight coming up, I always make sure to take 6 to 8 weeks of just purely boxing. So that means from the time I wake up to the time I go to sleep, everything's devoted to boxing, training 2, 3 times a day, watching film, um, talking to sponsors, getting things set up for my fight, all the little details. My whole day is spent just devoted to boxing.
okay. What barbershop, if you don't mind me asking?
It, it's called Studio Blends, right there in Pittsburgh. My good friend Wally, he actually owns the shop,
Oh, okay.
and he's
Um.
also the manager at the Lions Den.
Oh, okay. I see. And that's why you train at Lions then?
Yeah.
Okay. Um. In that old interview, it said that your sisters are all studying medicine in college, right?
Yeah, so my oldest sister, she did some time in college. She studied medicine, but then she chose a different route. And then my other sister, Jocelyn, she's currently in the medical field and looking to go back to college to become a registered nurse.
Okay. Do you have any plans to go to college?
As of right now, boxing is my main plan, but I've had a lot of interest in like sports nutrition, kinesiology, things of that nature. So I'm definitely open to going back to college, but just currently with how demanding boxing is, it's hard to find the time. But definitely in the future.
No, right. It's good to keep your, horizons open and everything. And if boxing is your passion, then chase after that. And it seems like you've been doing a lot already, um, in terms of boxing. But going back real quick to your sister, so it was because she started playing soccer at the Concord Community Youth Center that your dad kind of pushed you to go for a sport, right?
Yeah. So my sister Jocelyn, she played soccer when she was younger. And so when she enrolled at the youth center in Concord, my dad was like, all right, you got to do a sport too. You can't just be sitting around the house all day. You got to get some movement, get fit. So he just started naming sports, and I asked him, I was like, do you have MMA there? Or like, I don't know where it came from, but I said MMA. And they didn't have MMA there, but then he started listing off all the other combat or contact sports that they had. And I really, truly just randomly chose boxing. And then from there, the rest was history.
Now, why is it that you wanted to do MMA? Like, that seems like, I mean, how old were you at that time?
I was 7 years old. I was honestly, I was just really a little kid naming off random sports that I could think of at the top of my head. I don't know why. I literally could have said basketball, but out of all things, I said MMA. And then from there, I went to boxing, and I'm glad it ended up being boxing for sure.
Were you like an MMA fan or boxing fan when you were a little kid, or?
Honestly, no, not at all. As a younger kid, I was really reserved. I kind of off to myself, read a lot of books, just really was like a school kid. Like, I didn't do any type of sports, watch sports. Just like, it was completely random.
Really? Like, not even your dad watched boxing or anything like that?
Yeah, like, at least from what I could remember, my dad didn't watch any boxing. Nobody in my family really was super into it. And just by coincidence, I just said it.
That's really strange. But I mean, it's great. I mean, watching you fight, it shows that you really do care about the sport now. Um, so you started training at 7, but at what age did you start fighting other kids around the same age or anything or like start having matches?
So the first time I ever competed as an amateur was at 9 years old.
Okay. And were you fighting other 9-year-olds? How did they set it up, by weight or age?
Yeah, so in the amateurs, the way that they go is by age and weight. So they have different age ranges. It'll be like 8 to 9 years old, 10 to 11, or 10 to 12. And you compete within your age range and then by your weight. So my first fight, I believe my first fight ever was at 70 pounds.
Wow. Very small. And how long did you do amateur matches?
I actually boxed amateur just until last year. August 31st was my pro debut, but up until then, I was competing amateur throughout my whole boxing career, and just recently made the switch to pro.
And how long have you been training at Lions then?
At the Lions Den, I've been training about 3 years now.
Okay. And how did you get into contact with Lions then? Because of that manager of the barbershop, or beforehand did you know him?
So I actually had a friend who boxed at the Lions Den, and yeah, I spoke with him. He was a really good friend of mine, trusted his word, and came into the gym, tried it out, and everybody at the Lions Den showed me a ton of love, a ton of support. They treated me like if I was already there for a year, 2 years, 3 years. They treated me like family. And, yeah, I truly found like a second home there at the Lions Den.
And who is your trainer right now?
My coach, his name is Joseph Perez.
Okay. And you train, I've seen that one of the interviews you said you like to go to, I believe it's El Centro, like near San Diego, yeah. Right, to train?
Yeah, so it's about an hour and a half away from San Diego. It's called El Centro, California. It's about 15 minutes from the Mexico border. And the reason I came down here is actually because my coach moved out here. So that was the primary reason for me coming down here. But, you know, everything kind of happens for a reason. Out here, there's a really rich boxing culture. There's a ton of gyms here. And then if you cross the border, there's even more gyms. And boxing out here, it's really, there's a lot of pride in it. So a lot of the people out here in Mexicali, they don't really have any way out from the situation that they're in other than boxing. You know, it's a more poor city, uh, so boxing is like one of the only outlets for the people out here to be able to make it, and that's created a really rich culture in boxing. A lot of talent out here. For example, ex-world champion um, Venal Lopez. He trains in Mexicali, and we frequently go to his gym um, to spar there, to work out there. We've built a good relationship with them. There's also the national team that trains about 25 minutes away from where I stay here in El Centro. So that's another place where we could go for sparring and for working out and training with other coaches and just continuing to learn. So yeah, everything really worked out with El Centro, and it's the reason I come down here. My coach is down here, and then there's just so much boxing out here that you don't really find in a lot of other places.
So you train in three different places, it seems like. Lions Den and Centro and Mexicali. I
Yeah,
mean, that's a lot of
yeah.
places. But how is it that you sort of create like a schedule of where to train? Like when you're here in Concord, when maybe, sometime before a fight you train at Lions Den, and then as it gets closer you go to El Centro, and then, how is it that you format your training?
So we call it pre-camp, which is basically um, that time between training camp and having your fight. So, for example, about 4 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago, I was in pre-camp. I didn't have a fight date yet, but with boxing, it's a year-round sport, so we have to stay in shape. We have to stay sharp. So I would be training at the Lions Den for about 3 hours a day, and I would do my sessions in the morning, and then in the afternoons and at night, that's when I would go work at the barbershop. But then once we get into training camp, which is the final 6 to 8 weeks, that's when I'll come down here to El Centro, and that's when life becomes solely about boxing. Wake up, go to the gym, you come back, you rest a little bit, and then you go straight back to the gym, doing 2, 3 sessions a day, managing your time between working out, between resting and recovering, and also managing, the other things that are involved with boxing, like selling tickets and, figuring out what your sponsors are going to be. And that's part of the reason why I come out here, because I can dedicate myself fully to just boxing and making sure everything's to 100%.
Okay. And who do you stay with at El Centro, or do you stay at a hotel usually?
So here in El Centro, we have my coach has a few friends that rent out an apartment, and so we all as a group, contribute to the rent, and I have a place to stay out here.
Okay. So you said you turned pro last year in August, and that was your fight against J.C. King in Oakland, right?
Yes.
Now, was turning pro like a big decision for you, or was that something that you knew as a kid you were going to do boxing as a profession?
I would say, I mean, when I was younger, turning pro was always like a goal that we have in mind, but you get so caught up in the process of as an amateur of just developing that you don't pay too much thought to it. But as I got older and fell in love more and more with the sport, it definitely became something that was on that list of, all right, this is what I'm shooting for next. So the last few years of my amateur career, that was really what I was focusing on and thinking about, which was turning pro. And turning pro, it's definitely a process because it's a different fight style compared to the amateurs. So, those last few years as an amateur, I really trained with the thought in my mind of I eventually want to turn pro. And so eventually when that date came, August 31st, and I got the news that I could make my pro debut, it was definitely a big achievement. It was definitely something that I was looking forward to and was well prepared for.
Yeah. In that fight against King, you can actually hear somebody say that you look like you've been fighting for years. And obviously in the video itself, you look very prepared. You got like ice for veins and stuff. Um,
Hmm.
do you think that what contributed most to that was your amateur fights, or was it more the training and preparation and that mentality of becoming pro that you think sort of made you seem, despite it being your first pro fight, you look absolutely ready? So was it the amateur fights or was it the training? You think?
I do definitely think that my amateur career contributed greatly to me as a professional, but more than anything, it was the preparation prior to that. And that's where, coming down here to El Centro comes into play. I came down here for 8 weeks, and I trained my ass off, to keep it real. Just training my ass off, not just physically, but also mentally. That's something that a lot of people neglect. With this sport, you could be the most athletic fighter in the world, but if you don't have the right mentality, um, it just doesn't work. And so I feel like that pro debut, the reason it came out the way it did and it was so successful was because of my preparation physically, but more importantly, mentally.
Okay. And then after you defeated King by knockout, you fought in Sonora, Mexico, and that's where you earned your second one, right?
Yes.
Now, why is it that you went to Mexico? Was it because the fighter was on the same level as you? Uh, you got like, I mean, your family's from Mexico or something. Is it just sort of like representation or something, or what drove you to go to Mexico?
Truly, the only reason that I came down to Mexico is because, you know, in the initial years and the initial process of becoming a pro, one of the most important things is just staying active. That was something that me and the team were really focusing on, was me staying active, staying in the gym, staying in these training camps. And so to be able to do that, we had to have a goal. And, the goal was, to go fight and win in Mexico. And, that's what presented itself in the time being. And so we took the opportunity. We went down there and added another win to the record, which is always beneficial. So, yeah, it was really just about staying active and continuing to develop.
Okay. One of the things that surprised me about viewing your fights was your versatility, especially when you watched the King fight and then the David Minter fight.
Hmm.
Uh, against King, I noticed you were like much more fast. You did a lot of bobbing and weaving, very accurate. You kind of reminded me a little bit of Salvador Sanchez in that fight. And then David Minter, I had to like do a double take, and I was like, wait, is this the same Braulio? Because it was totally different. You slowed down a little bit more. You focused more on blocking than bobbing and weaving. You did a lot more heavy punches against David Minter.
Hmm.
Um, is that because you're brand new? I mean, you just started your pro debut last year. Um, and are you trying to adapt? Or I mean, I'm sorry. Are you trying different styles to see what suits you best, or are you somebody who likes to adapt to their opponent?
No, it's more about adapting to your opponent. If you fight the same fight, no matter who your opponent is in front of you, you're not going to have the same success. I can't fight everyone with the same style. Um, and especially in my most recent fight with David Minter, what people don't know is I actually took that fight on 3 days' notice because my opponent fell out. And normally I fight at 130 pounds, but this last fight was at 140. So I was fighting, an older guy with triple my experience, and he's a 140 pounder, two weight classes above me. I can't fight him the same way that I fought JC King. It's two different fights. And so that's where, fight IQ comes into play, and also your experience, being able to adapt to what's in front of you, being able to download your opponent and figure out where his holes are, you know, where he leaves himself open. And so, I truly feel like I'm a fighter who, no matter who you put in front of me, I can figure him out, I can download, see what's going to work, see what's not going to work. And, just like you're saying, one fight I could have one style, and the next fight I could have a completely different style. And that's what's going to make me such a great fighter later on in my career, is because these guys won't be able to predict, how I'm going to fight. It's always going to be something different.
I mean, that's insane that it was only 3 days. Because, I mean, the style is so different. I saw
Mm-hmm.
that Minter fight and I was like, whoa, now he's like Roberto Duran. Like, it's
Mm-hmm.
very in close fighting and everything. And you put on a masterclass in those last 2 rounds against him. Amazed he didn't get knocked out. Which I have to say, I think that, that below the belt punch, I think that was more on the belt, if you ask me. But, I'm not a,
No,
I'm not a
I
ref,
wasn't
so.
I wasn't trying to shoot for it, but
No,
it came a little bit lower than expected, and in the fight, I thought I was clean. That's why you saw me react the way I did. But ref decides what he wants.
yeah, I mean, you still got the win, but I was surprised that I think you probably could have knocked him out if they didn't give him that time. But
Hmm.
you still got the win and everything, and you still prove that you're how versatile of a boxer you are. Um, you said it's your dream to be champion in one of those interviews that I saw you in. Uh, you said it's your dream to be champion, like most fighters. But what I noticed is that you seem to focus more on legacy, having your name cemented into the sport. To
Hmm.
you, what is it that you can do to achieve that? Is it fighting the best names out there, unifying belts, becoming pound for pound by moving up in weight classes? What is it to you that you think makes a boxer's name cemented into the sport?
I believe all of those things really cement your name into the sport. But also another thing is, you got to be entertaining. At the end of the day, boxing, it is a sport and it's meant to be entertaining to the crowd. And so, when I fight, that's also something that I try to do. When I fight, I try to really put on a performance that no matter what, no matter who I fight, you know, my fans are looking forward to it. They know when I get in the ring, it's going to be a good night. If you're attending the event, you're going to have a lot of fun. If you're watching the fight, you're going to have a lot of fun. Um, and then on top of that, competing at the highest level, unifying belts, moving up in weight classes, and doing that all in stylistic fashion. I think those are all things that, make you memorable in the sport, that really cement your name so that, one day in the future, my kids, my grandkids, all those people can look back and be like, yep, that was my grandpa, or that was my dad, and you know, really create a legacy for my last name.
All right, and you're fighting at 139 pounds, although you said David Minter was at 140, but that's still lightweight division. Right now, it seems like the lightweight class is probably the most explosive in boxing. You have Gervonta Davis, who I know you're a fan of,
Mm-hmm.
William Cepeda, Isaac
Yep.
Cruz, Devin Haney, all these names. Uh, if somebody just came up to you and said, name a name and we'll get it done, who
Mm-hmm.
would you want to fight in that lightweight division?
If I had to take a fight right now, anybody in that lightweight division, I mean, that's a tough one. I would say just because he's, one of the biggest names, he's supposed to be one of the most dangerous, one of the best fighters, I would say Gervonta Davis. I'd like to challenge myself against, that level of talent.
Okay. Uh, yeah, unfortunately, I think Gervonta Davis, I think, is on. He's saying he's going to retire, right? So I don't know. But I
Yeah,
mean,
he's saying that he's ready to get out of it.
I don't know. I mean, you hear a lot of people say that. Teofimo Lopez, who's also in the lightweight division, has retired. I don't know how many times, and then he always
Mhm.
comes back. So, I mean, it could happen. Yeah, Gervonta Davis, you're a fan of. What is it about Gervonta Davis that makes him pop out for you?
So what I like about Gervonta Davis is, I mean, I'd say the one, he's a really talented fighter. He's got a lot of IQ, he's got a lot of power, he's got a lot of speed. He's a really, really good fighter, but he's also super entertaining. Every time I've watched his fights, I've always been on the edge of my seat, ready to see the knockout, um, always expecting, something grand. And so that entertainment aspect on top of the talent aspect, that's what makes me admire Tank Davis.
Okay, now let's put aside weight class for a minute. If somebody came up to you and told you you can fight any boxer out there right now, who would it be?
If I could fight anybody in the world, regardless of weight class,
Yeah.
I would say right now that's active. I would have to say Canelo Alvarez.
Which also you're a huge fan of. I've heard you say that. Um,
Hmm.
what is it? What is it that about Canelo that pops out to you? I mean, everybody loves Canelo. Well, he has a
I
lot of
mean,
haters,
yeah,
of course, but
everybody loves Canelo. Um, you know, he's a legend in the sport. You know, he's one of the greatest of all time. So I'd love to see how I stack up against that. Um, and then at the end of the day, every time Canelo fights, it's a super fight. You know, everybody he's fought these last couple of years, they've all gained a little bit of notoriety after fighting him. And you know, if I was the same weight class, I feel like it would be the same for me.
okay. Do you have any plans to move up in weight later in your career?
Oh yeah, of course. You know, I look to capture all the world titles at 130, and then from there go to 35 and do the same thing over again. And as my body keeps developing, as I keep aging and maturing, we'll be going based off of that, and just keep going up in weight wherever the best fighters are at. That's where I'm gonna be.
One of the things that is really great about you is work mentality, and that's something you even during this phone call you sort of make like a big well, I mean you bring it out a lot, and it's because
Hmm.
you fought 4 fights since August, uh, and you fought in March. That's only a few months ago, and you're hoping to fight 3 more after the this upcoming match in May, right?
Yes.
Are you afraid that maybe, and you don't have to answer this, I don't want mean to be a jinx or anything,
No, you're
uh,
okay.
but are you afraid that maybe, you're not giving yourself enough time to recover? I mean, because that's a lot of fights.
No, I'm not too worried about that because I work closely with my coaches and we're constantly checking in, seeing how my body's feeling, seeing how I'm feeling mentally also, there of course there's days where, you're drained, you're tired and your body just can't do it no more. And that's where those rest days comes in. That's where the recovery comes in. Um, Part of being a professional is learning to manage that workload. And like you're saying, make sure you're not overworking yourself and giving yourself enough rest so that you don't injure yourself and create lasting injuries that could affect your career. But no, I'm not worried at all because we take the right precautions.
All right, and I mean that's a lot of fights that you're planning for. Is that just to get your name out there and just show people that you're ready for anything that they can throw at you?
Yeah, the reason I'm so adamant about competing often is because one, I continue to develop. Two, I'm continuing to put my name out there. With no major promotion behind me, it's really up to me and my team to promote myself. And one way you do that is by fighting frequently and putting on entertaining performances that people want to see again, creating those fans, and that exposure in itself is what's going to eventually lead to one day a more major promotion seeing me, and they see the value that I bring and eventually get signed.
All right, and what motivates you to fight? Is for some people it's making their family proud. For you, is it just pure competition? Is it that progression in your career? What is it that makes you get out of bed and you're like, well, if I get a hit in the head today, that's fine.
Well, it's really a combination of things. Of course, one, I'm competitive. I want to be the greatest. I want to be the best. That's always something that I keep in mind. Um, but really, truly, what it is I want to be able to one day be so well off that my parents can get whatever they want, go wherever they want, never have to worry about money again, never have to work again. They work so much. Um, to this day, they still work so much. And growing up and seeing that and understanding where they came from, it's really put this mentality into me that I got to give it back to them one day. I got to be able to give them the childhood back that they didn't have when they came here. They came to the States so young and immediately got to work. They never got to enjoy themselves, got to travel and just have fun. So one day I want to be able to tell my parents, go on vacation, or what do you guys want, a new house? Like everything they could possibly need, I want to have it taken care of. Same thing for my family, and the same thing for my future kids. I want to be able to be there the whole process of them growing up. Them never have to say, oh, oh, my dad's at work, we can't do this, we can't do that. I just want all worries to be just gone for my family. I want just everyone happy, not having to worry about anything. They can just be free and do whatever they want. I would say that's my biggest motivation, just the freedom that success brings.
Yeah, it's a great reason to, yeah, to keep fighting. Um, I noticed that you, I don't know if this has changed, but in one of the interviews you said you currently don't have a promoter, right?
Hmm.
Is there any reason behind that? Is it just so you can pick your own fights, or is it because Lions Den sort of provides a little bit of promotion as well, or what's the reason
So,
behind that?
so I'm not signed to any promotion, but currently the Lions Den is my promoter. But I've had opportunities where I can go and sign with promoters, but the the logistics and the numbers, and it just doesn't make sense at the moment. I'm so early in my career where my value and as a fighter hasn't developed fully. So this is something that you have to have patience with. You can't get too money hungry and immediately try to go sign with somebody because they're gonna offer you a check. Um, Boxing is also a business, so just making smart business moves also.
Right. Okay. Um, Now, last question. Well, what are you hoping boxing fans see from you on May 24th?
Well, what I'm hoping is, everybody who watches my fight, attends the fight, watches the clips after my fight. I just hope that it brings them some joy. I hope it entertains them, and I hope that they're looking to see more. That's what I really want to do. I want people to be so happy at the event, have so much fun that they're like, bro, when's the next one? That's how I want them. I want them so excited for the next event, just just ready to get to the. I want to entertain. The biggest thing is I want to entertain the crowd. You know, I do my part. In the gym, and developing myself as a fighter. So when I go in the ring and I do fight, I'm so entertaining, so skillful that people can't take their eyes off me in the ring. That they just have a great time. That's the most important thing to me. That the crowd's entertained and they had a real good time.
I think for sure people are gonna see you, and you're gonna be one of the more memorable fights.
I
I mean,
appreciate that.
just from everything that I've seen, it's just been incredible seeing that how just fast you changed, and you saying that that Minter fight was only 3 days of preparation. Well, 3 days, knowing who your opponent was, it's
Yeah.
like Jesus compared to how you fought against King, it's insane. But those are some of the best fighters are the ones that don't keep to style, the ones that try anything that sticks. And for you, it's been working out so well. So yeah, I think May 24th fans are going to see that. They're going to definitely see
Thank you.
that.
I appreciate that, and I promise to definitely put on a good show.